afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chadwell Gymnasium. It's kind of a nice ring to it. Most of us have come here today because of the direct impact Ray Chadwell has had on our lives, be it as a coach, a mentor, a teacher, a colleague, a friend, or a family member. But I want to thank the current Red Raiders and Coach Young for being a part of these festivities. I hope you understand that although this all sounds like ancient history to you, it really is going to be a privilege for you to play in a gym, a facility that's named after Coach Chadwell. And my hope is that every time you step on this court, you will remember that you have an obligation to Coach Chadwell's legacy, and you will bring the same commitment to achieving your goals that he instilled in us, and those of us who actually had the opportunity to play for him. So I'm pleased to accept the ball from you tonight. Mike, thank you. Please accept the ball on behalf of the Chadwell family. And Bob, in range. As you can see from the program, we have a lineup of speakers that spans 20 years that Ray Chadwell was the head basketball coach here at London High School. But before I introduce these folks, it's fitting that I ask Reverend Gary Gus Miller, the LHS class of '58, and an outstanding athlete in his own right, to offer the invocation.
It's a real privilege for me to be a part of this. I knew Coach Chadwell not only as a coach and a teacher, but he was my employer. I worked for him as a lifeguard the first 2 years he managed the pool. Let us pray. Our gracious Lord, we thank you for the many privileges that we enjoy as Americans and as people who have come through London. Some of these things we've taken for granted, but as we look back, we are grateful for the good leadership and the kindness and the love and the guidance that we have received. And we pray that everything that is said and done here this evening would help the Chadwell family, and especially Ray, to realize how much he is appreciated. Bless them and bless him. Amen.
Thank you, guys. For those of you that don't recognize me, 42 years, about that many pounds ago, I was a member of the London High School basketball team that Coach Ray Chadwell coached to an undefeated mid-8 championship and a 22 record, which, by the way, is still the best record in school history, but who's counting? Thanks, class of '65. Back in the spring of 2005, our team staged a little reunion to commemorate the 40th anniversary of our championship season. And to honor Coach Chadwell, who was, of course, the man who made it all possible. And we had a great time reminiscing, and we even presented Coach with a little plaque to mark the occasion. But we all recognized that this small gesture was totally inadequate to say thank you to someone who had done so much for us individually and for London High School in general. So as a result, we began looking for a way to permanently memorialize a tribute for his contributions. And the obvious answer seemed to be to launch an effort to have the gym named after him. Unfortunately, once the reunion was over, we sort of lost our momentum. And it was not until my classmate and teammate Bob Dillingham, class of '65, and Nick Creef, the class of '57, took it upon themselves to get this ball rolling again by rounding up the necessary support and presenting a proposal to the Board of Education. We owe them a debt of gratitude for stepping up and getting this done, because many of us are, quite frankly, and should be embarrassed that it took us to the fourth quarter to do something we should have done many years ago. And so how about a round of applause for Bob and Bob? Thanks for your efforts, guys. Now, at a dedication ceremony like this, it is customary for someone to stand up and read off a list of the honorees' accomplishments. And as the MC, I guess I'm elected. But as I do this, I think we should bear in mind that Coach Chadwell's tenure and his win-loss record, while obviously impressive, are not really what today is all about. Producing winning teams simply a byproduct of doing things right. And Ray Chadwell always did things the right way, whether it was coaching, teaching, or serving as administrator of the London school system. As many of you know, Coach Chadwell came to London as head basketball coach in 1953 after an outstanding athletic career at Hamilton Taft High School and later at Otterbein College, where he was a three-sport star athlete. He earned 12 varsity letters. After his graduation from Otterbein in 1949, he coached and taught at Fredericktown, Ohio for several years, while spending his summers pitching in the Philadelphia Athletics and Cincinnati Reds farm system. Excuse me, folks. During his 20 years as London's basketball coach, Coach Chadwell's teams put up a 222-173 record, won 3 mid-league championships, finished second and third on 2 other occasions. Our 1964-65 team, did I mention that we still have the best record in school history? Made it to the AA district semifinals before losing to Columbus East, and the 68-69 group made it to the district finals, where Columbus East was again the culprit. Coach's 1970-71 team won the district and was the regional runner-up. Beginning in 1964 through 1973, when he hung up the clipboard, Coach Chadwell's teams were remarkable 61-20 at home, which, if my math is correct, forgive me if I'm wrong, Mrs. McCampbell, works out to a home winning percentage of over 75%. And Coach was inducted into the Central Ohio Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame in 1992. Now, these credentials in themselves are certainly enough to support making this gym his honor, but this is not the whole story. Over the same time frame, Coach Chadwell also served as head baseball coach, assistant football coach, elementary school principal, and as the boys' physical education teacher, running an exemplary program for which he was honored by community leaders. After relinquishing the basketball coaching reins in 1973, Coach Chadwell served as middle school principal into the 1980s. Now, during our 2005 reunion, I had the opportunity to share with the group what Coach Chadwell meant to me in terms of my development as a basketball player and as an individual. For those of you who were there, relax. I'm not going to tell all those same stories today, so you're safe. But before turning this over to our speakers, I will say this. I played for 3 different coaches in college, one of whom was an NBA player at one point. None of them could help candle Coach Chadwell when it came to knowledge of the game and what it took to win. He taught me everything I ever knew about the game, starting when he invited some of us to his Saturday morning basketball program when I was in the 3rd grade, continuing through when he gave me the opportunity to play on the varsity as a freshman when I could barely walk and chew gum at the same time. And through the senior season, it was one of my best ever memories. I've often remarked that during those 4 seasons I played for him, he spent more time with me than he did with his own kids. He was there before school in the morning for weightlifting. He kept me after practice every night to work on my coordination, stamina, and fundamentals. And as I said, he made all the difference in my basketball career. Now, I crowed about our 22 record when I was a senior, but I have to confess that when we were freshmen, our team only won 3 games all year. But the interesting thing is that Coach Chadwell coached that team just as hard as he coached the championship team. It didn't matter what the record was, what the score was, or who you were. He gave you his best effort, and in return, he expected your best effort for him. He played hard. He played hard all the time, or he just didn't play. He hated to lose, and he taught us to hate to lose. And those were life lessons, not just basketball lessons. And we're all the better for them. Sorry about the voice, folks. Now, our first speaker today is longtime London resident Jim Smith of the class of '54, who was a 3-sport letterman and played for Coach Chadwell on his first Red Raider basketball team. Jim is a 1959 graduate of the OSU College of Civil Engineering, and I think as many of you know, Jim and his wife Nancy have been family friends with the Chadwells for over 50 years. I have a very personal memory of Jim I'd like to share. One day of basketball practice, and this was a number of years after he graduated, Jim shows up, all suited up to play, and I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? Because I know he and Coach are great buddies, and Jim was a great supporter of London basketball, but I still couldn't figure out what he was doing with Jim. So we started practicing our half-court offense, and Coach puts Jim on me. And for the next 15 minutes, he proceeds to bump me, shove me, pull me, grab me, poke me, and never changed the expression the entire time. So I'm fit to be tied, and I'm looking over Coach, and Coach is just looking the other way, not paying attention. Actually, I think he was trying to keep from laughing. And well, I think you get the picture. Now, I'm sure that Coach and Jim had a conversation one weekend night about my toughness or lack thereof. And he decided to bring Jim in to impersonate one of the Hanson brothers in Slapshot and teach me a few lessons. So, thanks. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's nice to be remembered, even if only as a bad example. Some of the things that I am going to mention have been mentioned when they gave Ray's biography. But to start from the beginning, first time I saw Coach Chadwell, Ted Hunter will remember it, London 23, Fredericktown 2, top of the fourth inning. Oh boy, I want to get a play. We're ahead 23-2, and he's going to put me in. Coach Kai, large man, steps up on the dugout steps, beautiful silver gray hair. Mr. Umpire. The umpire comes over. My boys have to be home for the senior class play. I think we've had enough. That was my first introduction to Coach Chadwell. In the summer of 1953, London had a new coach. Coach Dorwin Kai had moved on to go back to school and served administration. And Messrs. Hartley and Von Kennel, now there's some names for you, had hired a certain Mr. Ray Chadwell to replace him. None of us knew who he was other than he had to go to the class play. And we didn't know anything about him. And I suppose, really to a certain extent, we still don't. We knew that he was a great basketball player for the Hamilton Big Blue, which was at that time probably the best high school basketball program in the state of Ohio. And he had coached at Fredericktown and was successful there. We knew he was only 9 years older than the seniors. We'd seen him come to London that summer, and he worked down at the farm bureau elevator, testing the seed or testing the wheat to see how much moisture was in there. Word had filtered out that he was a three-sport athlete at Otterbein, excellent athlete. He was a professional baseball player. Yeah. He had a contract. Ben Kennedy and I, as a matter of fact, after our senior year, we took our senior road trip, a 600-mile road trip, to take Ray to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where he was going to play for the Red Roses. They only had one car, so Ben and I brought the car back, and Ray was left in Lancaster all summer long, no vehicle. He was Army veteran. He was drafted at the end of World War II. And he served actually a lot playing on the fields of service ball. Football practice started out. At that time, all the coaches, we had three major coaches, Coach Cochran, Coach Chadwell, and Coach Bowles. And they did it all. Coach Bowles, the head football coach. Ray was assistant football coach. Coach Bowles, JV coach, basketball. Ray's varsity. Coach Cochran coached track. It was just starting up. Coach Ray was the assistant baseball coach. Coach Bowles was the head baseball coach. There was no specialization because the main man was in the next to the next season. But in football practice, we started to learn more about Coach Ray. That he was mainly all business, but he had a wicked sense of humor, which seemed to be stimulated by seeing one of us get our clock cleaned on some kind of play down there at the old Cherry Street. Ray inflicted a will to win and a hard work ethic, and they were his primary assets that he required from us. Basketball season began. Now Ray was the head man, and you had to be in shape. He had you jumping rope, jumping back and forth over that daggone bench that he had. Even though we didn't have to run his obstacle course that somebody had to run later on. The team was 2-19 the year before, so nobody expected much. And he started from scratch. But I think Coach Ray had a plan. A good guard or two to handle the ball and maybe to score some. Dickie LeBeau and Lon Bass took care of that. A good underneath player who could handle the ball and he could score. Dale's brother Don took care of that. So you've got a couple holes left. So where does Ray look? Ray looks at the football line. Jack Crabb and myself. Our job was to rebound, play defense, and protect the players that could actually play the game of basketball. I know Barth and the later players won't believe this or won't admit it, but the same theme kept reoccurring year after year. You had skilled players, and then you had the lugs or what you want to call them. Now, all the old players up here behind me, you can kid yourself and tell everybody you were in the skilled group, but I know which group we were really in. We were a team. We were students and players, and Coach was the teacher and the coach. He was the head of the family. And believe me, that line was not crossed. Then we were out of school. He became a friend to us. And this first class became the first in a long line of what I like to call the London basketball family. There was a connection between the players, current, Marty, TJ. Connection between the players, current and past. And that bond is still there. And the common bond through it all, through every one of us, was Coach Chad. It's not a mistake that there are second generation children of London players named Chad. That's not a mistake. When something tough happened in your life, which happens to all of us, Coach Chad was there for support, encouragement, and a willingness to do whatever he could to help us. And that's something that I personally will never forget. Reverend Gordon Johnson, the Presbyterian minister, is here. Last Sunday, in the Presbyterian Church Bulletin, these words: ceremony, Saturday, May 19th at 4 o'clock, London High School, to name the London High School gym after Ray Chadwell, a great coach, educator, administrator, person, and friend. Congratulations, Coach. It's an honor and it's well deserved.
It truly is an honor for me to introduce our next two speakers, Gary Reynolds, class of 1960, and Dick Reynolds, class of 1961. Anyone who knows anything about the history of London athletics knows that the Reynolds brothers are a legend in this town. Bob and Roger and Gary and Dick were the mainstays of London's football teams, for football, basketball, track teams for almost a decade. If you were a kid growing up in London in the 1950s like I was, these guys were your idols, no questions asked. In fact, as youngsters, all our sandlot games, whether it was football or pickup basketball, it used to start with the argument over who got to be Red, who got to be Bucky, who got to be Dick. Both Gary and Dick were, of course, all-league performers in 3 sports, and along with Roger, who you all know went on to a career in the NFL, are members of the London Athletic Hall of Fame. You recall that I mentioned earlier that Coach Chadwell had won 12 letters at Otterbein, and there are only 3 other individuals in Otterbein history that have ever accomplished that feat, and you're now going to hear from 2 of them. Both of them starred in 3 sports at Otterbein over their 4-year careers, and both were named Otterbein's Outstanding Athlete as seniors. Gary and Dick continued to mirror Coach Chadwell's career by following him into the coaching profession, and those of us who live in Central Ohio, of course, had the opportunity to follow Dick's extraordinary run as Otterbein's head basketball coach, during which he's been named OAC Coach of the Year more times than I think I can count. He's taken at least 4 teams to the NCAA Division III Final Four and coached several Division III National Players of the Year. As far and away, the winningest coach in Otterbein history, in addition to have served as Otterbeins athletic director since 1992. Gary, too, has had an outstanding coaching career, which included a lengthy stint at Sandusky, Ohio, where he was the head basketball. We coached both football and basketball, but was the head basketball coach for about 9 years. And he also, while he was there, he coached Scott May, who went on to become the 1975 NCAA Division I Player of the Year at Indiana. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. Gary has recently retired after 22 years as the receivers coach at Richardson High School in Richardson, Texas, where his football teams were perennial state playoff contenders. I give you Gary and Dick Reynolds.
Thank you, Garth, for the introduction. Where are the young men that were just sitting over here, the basketball players? If you can catch them, that's okay, Coach. Tell them that I will pick 4 other people. You fit us up with some tennis shoes. I'll take Chuck Connor, size 10, Converse, and we'll wear them out in a half-court game. We will snatch their confidence. I'd like my brother Bob to stand up, my sister-in-law, Sharon. Bob. Our family all started with Bob. Bob was all big, and in fact, all 4 of us were all big. He probably doesn't want to mention this, but Junior Law did wear him out one time over at Worthington. Thank you, Bob. It's an honor to be able to recognize Coach Chadwell and his family for the contributions that he has made to London High School and community. Thanks to Bob Dillingham, Nick Creek, Dick Cunningham, Nick Creek, and Barth Royer, and anybody else who had any type of involvement in this wonderful ceremony. Thanks to the London Board of Education for right-of-way passing the proposal to name the new gym after Coach Chadwell. I love London. I love the people in this community. My brothers and I have often said we would not change a thing on where, when, and how we were raised. We enjoy coming back to London. Most importantly, I want to thank Ruth Chadwell and the family for the love and support to allow Coach to pursue his career in teaching and coaching. Coach Cochran, I did see you. Please stand. Coach Cochran. Speaking for all the athletes here today, I would like to recognize you for the many hours you gave the junior high and varsity track programs. Your hard work made us the most fundamentally sound athletes in the league. You were behind the scenes, but we all recognize your knowledge of fundamentals and hundreds of hours of scouting were a critical part of the total program that made us champions. Being a former coach and understanding the importance of the assistant, you may well have been the straw that stirred the drink for the London athletic programs. Thank you, Coach Cochran. Coach Chadwell was the epitome of a high school physical education teacher and coach. He motivated, challenged, and taught us many life lessons. He earned the respect of athletes, opponents, and the community. To this day, I can reflect and vividly remember his absolutely great physical education classes. Were the guys that were under coach, do you remember Guadalcanal basketball? Got the kids off the street. Pinball, tumbling, gymnastics, boxing, and dodgeball. We had a kid in our class once that came off the court after a dodgeball game. He was hit so many times with the volleyball, it looked like he had smallpox. Coach, thank you for those wonderful physical education classes. In fact, in Mrs. Long's English class, advanced English, thank you, one day she said, "Mr. Reynolds, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm tying my shoes." She says, "I have 10 minutes of classroom left." "What are you doing that for?" And I said, "Mrs. Long, I have gym next period, and I'm going to set a obstacle course record." Obstacle course is very important. I really believe if America would mandate physical education for all students, K through 12, and take a page or two from coaches' curriculum, America would have healthier, tougher, and more students that would truly fit. Coach Chadwell, I loved your physical education classes, and he was a man's man. Coach Chadwell was very special to the Reynolds family. All four brothers had coached for physical education and basketball. We, in fact, all had nicknames. Bob, the oldest, was Give It Up. Roger was Cough It Up. Dick was Set It Up, point guard. My name was Send It Up. I shoot basketball, I guarantee you. When did I know Coach was a great coach? Well, it was right after football, my senior year at Marysville, playing a big game on the road. We're struggling. We're early in the fourth quarter. And Coach Chadwell called a timeout and sat down. He looked me right in the eye. He said, "Buck, if you stop shooting, I'm going to take you out of the game." I said, "God, he's a great coach." I went 3 for 27 in that game. 3 for 27. I put it on the calculator. I was talking ridiculous. 9%. 9% of the field. I was hoping we'd go overtime so I could get 10 more shots and get in double digits. Roger Dodger, old Cough It Up. Roger could put some jelly on you in football. I mean, he could shake you down in the open field. Here's a guy that scored 23 touchdowns, 20 PATs, had 5 TDs called back because Max Mauser clipped 50 yards downfield. Against Gahanna, their senior said he would never beat them. It's 12-0. Gahanna had us down at halftime. Roger put 5 touchdowns on in the second half. He wore their tail out in the second half. Anyway, here's a guy that dribbled a basketball from our home when he was a lifeguard to the swimming pool and back for 2 years, 2 summers, and could not get the ball from the baseline over the 10-second line without a violation. Roger said he was the first defensive stopper. He didn't play with all he did. Coach Cochran, your chair drill did not work for Roger Dodger, or Red Dog as he used to call it. I do want to say this about Roger. Several people have asked. Our brother was diagnosed with lymphoma. He's doing fine. He has the best doctors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's had 2 chemotherapies. He had 1 surgically removed. He has 2 that has shrunk. And we told Roger, your optimism Red has given the family a lot of strength. He feels much better than after the first chemotherapy. He has 4 more to go. Thanks for asking, and include Roger in your prayers. I have 3 heroes in my life. One is my mom. She instilled the courage to beat the odds and to love my brothers. Things were tough at 163 and a half Elm Street. The rich kids drank Kool-Aid. We had sugar water. I remember once in the 7th grade, Mom took me to the Mark's shoe discount downtown. In the 7th grade, I bought a pair of shoes about size 12. I bought size 12 because I hadn't put them in layaway for 3 years. The word on the street was that the poor kids in London felt sorry for the Reynolds boys. Often, I heard my mother say she was thankful that Coach Chadwell was part of our life. My second hero is Oscar Gibson. He showed me how to work hard and to take pride in what I did. My third hero is Coach Ray Chadwell. He gave me the opportunity to go to college and change my life. He helped me to become a successful adult. This has influenced my kids and will certainly someday influence my grandchildren. Up until our generation, only one Reynolds Gibson had graduated from college. Today, of all of our children, Bob, Roger, Nick, and Gary, 9 have graduated from college. Coach Chadwell personally took me to Otterbein College for a campus visit, enrolled me, and it changed my life. Coach, you're my hero. I'm going to close by reading a little note I set down. And it says, Coach, you did more for the Reynolds family than any other high school or college coach. You entered our father-absent home when we needed a strong male role model. Roger, Dick, and I embarked on careers in teaching and coaching because of your influence. You did more for the Reynolds family and boys than their father. As we all travel down this freeway of life, closing the circle, I think everyone wants to feel that their life made a difference. We all want our life to be meaningful, to have mattered. I'm proof that the profession you chose allowed you to do exactly that. You were not just an outstanding physical education teacher and coach, you were in the business of helping young people succeed in life. And for that, I thank you. Coach, we also thank you for the little things you did, like putting up the new basketball nets in the park, letting us lift weights and play basketball at night at the swimming pool. And oh yes, thanks, Coach, for taking the time 49 years ago to help Roger tie his tie on a cold December night in the locker room after a practice. These were the little things over the years, Coach, that enabled your players to respect, admire, and love you. From the heart, congratulations, and we love you. Thank you.
All my life I've followed him. He doesn't get any easier with these brothers and what they've done ahead of me. And getting the microphone out of his hands is a very difficult thing to do. I don't know if there's very many people who pass through London High School who have had the opportunity to do what the 4 Reynolds brothers did. I don't know if there's any other family who coached 4 of us. I don't know if he withstood it or not. But when we divided the time up between Gary and myself, one of the reasons that I wanted to speak also was not from necessarily the standpoint of regurgitating to you what Gary did, but more from the family standpoint. We kind of had a pecking order in our family all of our lives. Brother Bob being obviously the head of our family, and Roger and Gary, and then there's me. And I came along after everybody had a lot of experiences. But on behalf of them, the thing that I wanted to kind of convey to you, a couple of things. Number one is we want to say thanks to the Chadwell family. Gary has expressed essentially how we feel, and it's difficult sometimes to put it in words. Some of you can share our situation, and we don't want to bore you with our livelihood as how we came up, but personally, I babysat for the Chadwells. I spent a lot of time with the Chadwell family. The swimming pool, tell them to get out of the damn deep end of the pool. You're too little to be in there. To babysitting with them and then to playing. I I had the unique opportunity to be able to say that not only from a strength standpoint, but having graduated from Otterbein and having the fortune to be able to come back to Otterbein or from Otterbein College and assist Jim Bowles and Ray Chadwell and Lee Cochran in the first year of my coaching career, it enabled me to be able to go on further. I want to say thank you after learning what they were like not only as a player, but then as an assistant coach. I don't know how many people have had the opportunity to have played for Coach and coached with Coach, and been a close family member, but I go a little bit further in being able to say thank you to the family for sharing Coach and your family with us. Being everyone who had the opportunity, like Brother Bob, to play baseball and be very good at that, and basketball and be very good at that, and all the people who came through, the Tom Buckley, the park across the swimming pool, summer league, all that. But in particular, Coach Chadwell, and thanking you, the Chadwell family, for sharing your dad with us, because he really replaced a lot for us. As what we were lacking at that time. The other thing is, on a personal note, I don't know if you know it, but Coach Chadwell is still coaching. I had the good fortune a few years ago to win a championship that a lot of people were enthralled with and thought it was a pretty good feat. Coach Chadwell was a part of that championship. I'm still coaching, and Coach is still coaching. I don't know if you really realize it or not, but I still break a 1-3-1 press and a full court press. I still attack my own zone offense using, and before a lot of people in our conference in Division III were doing it, I was using a blind spot and overloads, and the kids who come to me are still being coached by Ray Chadwell. The good Lord lets me live longer and still coach a few more years. Coach Chadwell will still be coaching. It's very, very significant that this court is going to be named after Coach Chadwell, because not only the 20 years he coached at London High School, but the 35 years that Dick Girls has coached at Otterbein College, Ray Chadwell is still coaching. And he has been part of a few championships. He's been part of a few Players of the Year in the conference. He's been part of, how many wins I have now, 600-something wins at Otterbein College. Ray Chadwell has had a significant part of it. I've had the pleasure to be able to not only play for him, assist him, babysit for him, call him on the phone when I had a problem in coaching, to still be able to disseminate down to young people the philosophies that we learned. Yes, Coach at this time in the game of basketball, but Lee Cochran, Jim Bowles, they still, how they raised us and dealt with us as far as being people is still being carried on from my standpoint as to what I do as athletic director and basketball coach and associate professor of physical education at Otterbein College. What took place as to what he taught us and taught me is still taking place. So as long as I'm still active doing it, Coach, you're still doing it. I want to say thanks to your family for allowing us to share him. You ought to, the whole community ought to be able to step forward someday and really recognize that Jim Bowles, Lee Cochran, Ray Chadwell were ahead of their time. Coach, family, thank you so very much.
Thank you, guys. Next up in our lineup is an individual who really needs no introduction in this community, Richard Cunningham of the class of 1996. Cookie, as we knew him then, earned 66. Cookie, as we knew him then, earned 8 varsity letters in 3 sports during his playing days, and was a teammate of mine on Coach Chadwell's 1964-1965 championship team, which still has the best record among basketball history. I doubt if I'll get any argument if I tell you that he was one of the best running backs in the history of London High School football. He was selected as first team All-Mid-A tailback in both his junior and senior years. He's also a member of the London High School Athletic Hall of Fame. After attending Central State University, where he lettered in football and golf, he made his way back to London, where he continues to teach and coach to this day, currently serving as the junior high girls basketball coach and the varsity golf coach. Along the way, he was also instrumental in starting the London Middle School football program. And if that's not enough, he's also the president of the London Athletic Boosters Club. I do have one story about Coach Cunningham that I would like to share. I don't know if he remembers this, but a bunch of us went to watch a preseason football scrimmage. I think it was over at Southeastern. London has the ball on its own 40-yard line, and it's like 3rd and 4. And they pitch the ball to Cookie going around the left end, and as he sweeps around the end, he's got the defensive back right in front of him. He fakes inside, spins to the outside, runs 60 yards untouched for a touchdown. When he gets to the goal line, the closest guy to him is Coach Bowles, who chased him all the way down the field to chew him out for not cutting it inside and taking the sure first down. They're just no pleasing some coaches. All right. Thanks. That's going to be.
Thank you, Art. That brought back some memories I kind of forgot. But we met here for a special purpose today, and that's to honor a man who all of us has respected and loved. The man has distinguished coaching career, Coach Chadwell. We who grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s were blessed to be raised at this time, to have coaches like Jake Von Kennel, J.J. Hartley, Ray Chadwell, Jim Bolus, Lee Cochran, Bob Parker. What role models we had. It was tremendous. Now, I'm going to name some names on them. Jim Smith, Bob LeBeau, Dick LeBeau, Dick, Gary, Roger Reynolds, Will Pratt, Jim Caldwell, Butch Morrison, Cam Richmond, Dennis Buzzard, Craig McCord, Ron Gibson, and myself. We're all tribute to these coaches. We're all coaches. And coaching, and a lot of our fundamentals we learned through Coach Chadwell and Coach Bowles. They'll leave anyone out. But I know when I started coaching football in '85, I wanted to be like Coach Bowles. When I started coaching basketball in '86, I wanted to be like Ray Chadwell. And I've been blessed that for 14 years I got to walk the sidelines that Coach Bowles did. And for the last 20 years, I've coached in the same gym that I played with against Coach Chadwell. And in fact, I think I'm in his old office. And that memories have not been one day that it's not went by that I've not thought, Ray Chadwell did when I walk in that gym. And a lot of things that we learned when we played for Coach Chadwell, I still use today. A lot of the drills, like Coach Reynolds says, that some things you never forget. And when my senior year, Dick Reynolds came back, and I had the pleasure to play for him. And he was a great inspiration because the Reynolds brothers were legend in London. Everybody wanted to be like the Reynolds brothers. And he had taken me over to Ottawa my senior year and took me around the halls and the football field, the basketball gym, and let me know what that was all about. I just realized that when he was speaking that he was just emulating what Coach Chadwell was paying back. Now, I feel real special because I had Coach Chadwell for all three sports: football, basketball, baseball, physical education class, and during the summer at the pool. I mean, you could hardly go anywhere without not seeing Coach. So we always had to be on our best behavior. My freshman year, I made the varsity baseball team. And Coach had taken us down to Hamilton Taft, his old high school, and played a game. I always thought myself as being an infielder, catcher, or in third base. But he put me in right field. And I really wasn't sure why he did that. But I was grateful that I got to start. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, the sun was coming up pretty bright. It was shining down, and the fly ball was hit the right field. And I look up, and I go this way, and I go this way, the ball drops right in front of me. So I picked it up, I threw it in, and finally got the third out. I go running in, the dugout's a little bit like this. So I get the pitcher's mound, and I started going this way. And Coach Chadwell's, he's showing me. So I'll got my head down, because I really don't want to look at it. He says, Dick, you should have been in the service. So you sort of look like a clown out there. I said, Coach, sun shines every day. I said, Coach, the sun was in my eyes. He said, Dick, oh, I call me Dick. He said, the sun shines every day. But the guy that dry sense of humor, I don't really remember we were laughing. I mean, it's just kind of a chuckle. And we just started practice, and we're in the dugout, and he throws some gum down on the floor. Does anybody want gum? Kind of look around. Nobody's reaching down for any, so I just reached down and feel it. Remember you guys played baseball, had that little fumble back? Whack! Right across my hand. And like Coach Smith said, I didn't think it was funny at all. In 1965 and 64, when we had that championship team, there was so much excitement in London. And the guys were growing up, and we knew we were going to have a good basketball team. And so Coach Jake Moncano and J.J. Hartley realized that all the crowd was going to have, they had to do something real special to get all those people in that gym. So they built especially extra bleachers on the stage. That's for particular season to watch, and all the people coming. If you didn't get there at 6 o'clock an hour before the game, you wouldn't get to see. That was a tremendous year, and I said I'm part of that team, but you know, it was 15 of us on that basketball team. We only had 14 uniforms. You know, Bill Jordan and I, we were kind of low on the totem pole, so we had to alternate suits. So every other game, I got the dress. But it was, but the next year, now we had 45 kids playing basketball. We had 15 freshmen, 15 JV, and 15 on varsity. But unfortunately for Dwight Cox and Billy Whitelow, there was 11 seniors. So there wasn't much time for us juniors. Now, Dwight got to play a lot for the varsity team, but Billy and I was just kind of back in the background. But the next year, I'm sorry, Coach, we kind of suffered a little bit. We won every game at home almost, but we wasn't very good on the road with Billy. But Howard Porter came up when he was freshman along with Jim Phoenix, and Coach didn't really believe in starting a lot of freshmen, but these guys are pretty good basketball players. And actually, Howard ended up being the leading scorer, and Jim Phoenix ended up being the leading rebounder. But next year, and during that first practice, the season, I went home after practice, and my mom asked me to go upstairs to wake my dad up. At that time, he was working the night shift, and so I went up and found he had died in his sleep. And the toughest thing for me would have to go back down and tell my mom. But the support that Coach Chadwell and Coach Molas showed our family was just tremendous, and I've never ever forgotten that. It's really special. But as the athletic booster president, normally we do this in the fall. But we felt it wasn't proper to have a gym named after him and not name an athletic hall of fame. So this time, if his family would like to come up, I want to present and induct Coach Chadwell into the athletic hall of fame. Chadwell. 1945, Hamilton graduated. 1950, Audubon College graduate. Audubon earned 10 letters in football, basketball, and baseball. Chadwell pitcher in Philadelphia A system. Lebanon High School basketball coach from 1953 to 1973. 222 wins, 173 losses. 3 Mid-8 League championships. AA Central District Championship 1971.
1971 Dayton Regional Final, 2-point loss to Tipp City. 2 sectionals championships, 1965-64 Mid-8 champions were 20-2. Best record in school history. Central Ohio Basketball Coach Hall of Fame inductee, 61 wins and 20 losses on court from 64 to 73. London Head Baseball Coach, 1961-1970. Central District Coach Champions, 1969. Central District Finals, 1967 and 1968. London High School Assistant Football Coach, 1953-1969. London High School Assistant Baseball Coach, 1953-1961. Physical Education Teacher, 1953 and 1969. London High School Principal, 1969-1970. Coach Chadwell, inducted May 19, 2007.
And we'll do this again in the fall at the parties of the Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Thanks, I neglected to mention after Eric was talking, I can guarantee that he never told me to keep shooting or taking it. It was always the other side. He never told Gary. We're going to fast forward a few years now to our next speaker, Doug Sebastian, the class of '72. Doug was a 2-year letterman in basketball and was a leader of the 1970-71 London team that won the AA District Championship and just missed the trip to the state tournament, losing the heartbreaker in the regional finals by 2 points to Tipp City. Doug now lives in Dublin and has been with Delphi Corporation for the last 30 years. Doug.
That's something else to start off with. At 22, you're about to hear about the best basketball team ever, so get ready. First of all, I'd like to say I'm honored to be part of this ceremony today, and let me tell you why. Every coach that I've ever had play played a mentoring role in my life. Coach Chadwell is the top of the list. When asked to do this, Paul asked me to speak tonight. I thought, why not? I get another chance to play basketball. The second thought I had is, where's Mrs. Hildebrand when you need her? Let me tell a few stories about Coach first before we get to the 70-71 team. Coach lived in our neighborhood, and basketball was going to be in our lives. To name a few of our neighbors: Deb Kennedy, Kenny Tomlinson, Paul and Steve, my brother Joe, and myself. We played almost every day, whether we played in the shack, Coach's backyard, over at Doc Hayes, the basketball court, or at Calvin Park. One year, Coach took us, 8 of us, to the Citadel in South Carolina in July. John Phillips and myself, Paul, just to name a few that I remember. You have to be a saint to drive 8 of us kids clear to the Citadel. Not only that, what I remember is it was hot. Has anybody been in South Carolina in July? It is awfully hot. Now, I didn't have air conditioning, but I believe Coach did. Coach, I'm going to tell you this, though. I've been married for 30 years this summer, and quite frankly, I don't know how I got year 1 in. When Deb and I were dating in high school, you would call us, a bunch of us, up at 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday night and say, meet us at the gym for midnight basketball. Funny thing is, we'd all show up. Coach not only was the head basketball coach, but he's also head baseball coach, assistant football coach, and for whatever reason, he was our driver's ed coach. I didn't hear anybody mention that here tonight. The first day of driving, this young lady turned right, kept turning right, and we're heading for a row of hedges. I'm in the back seat going, hit the brake, please hit the brake. And he did. And he always graded you. At the end of your driving experience, he'd give you an A, B, or C, whatever you got. But when you did something like that, he'd say, well, we're just going to chalk this day up for a day of experience. Now let's talk a little bit about the 70-71 season. This is a group of guys who defied giving up. The The team consists of Tim Hill, Mr. Clutch, Tom Swears, Brute Strength, Kevin Hackett, my greatest highlight. Kevin was a senior in football. He was the starting quarterback. Right before the season started, he broke his thumb, so it gave me an opportunity to start. None of that basketball, he got mononucleosis. Gave me another opportunity. So Kevin certainly was one of my allies. Mike Terry, there's a reason why they put the ceiling on the gym. This guy can jump completely out of the gym. Greg Hoosier, who I thought his dribbling skills were 20 years ahead of his time. Bobby Russell, Tom Whitelow, probably the most tenacious defenders you ever went against. Bobby Woods, the second Mr. Clutch, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. Myself, Kenny Thompson, Steve Chadwell, who could shoot from anywhere, Ken Pagel, who's a huge guy, Jay Wallace, and Jim Hackett. Managers that year were Larry Napper, Jim Nelson, who we all love, and Tim Bennett. Our first tournament game, we were seeded number 7. And we're playing the number 2 Licking Valley. No one thought we had a chance. As I recall, it was a rough game because nearly all of us fouled out. At the end of the game, Bob Woods hit 8 free throws in a row for our first tournament win. The next couple of wins was nondescript, but wins nevertheless. Our next challenge was Mohawk for the district championship. However, Coach had us up to the challenge. We won and off to the regionals. At this time, Coach thought he needed to toughen us up. He invited Dick LeBeau, Bob Dillingham, which I talked to him in the middle of the 90s, doesn't remember this, Denny Buzzard himself, and a couple of other guys, and they actually tried to kill us. We were all 160 pounds, they're 220, 230, played pro football just out of college, out at Purdue, but I think we beat those guys too. We won our first regional game against Dayton Oakwood, and the next game against Tip City, our goal was to get Coach to St. John's Arena. We fell just 3 points short of our goal. But what I remember most about the support of the London community, the pep rallies at the school gym were just nuts. The local residents who came in droves to the Coliseum and Dayton Arena. When we were playing in Dayton in front of 8,000 people, I truly believe 6,000 were from London. A little bit about Coach's spirit. In conclusion, we as players believed in Coach Chadwell. And all those fans who followed us believed in Coach Chadwell as well. Coach had a winning spirit, demonstrated it in everything he did. Coach brought a spirit to this community like no other. That is why we are here today. Congratulations, Coach, and honor well deserved.
Our next speaker is John Phillips of the class of 75. John was Columbus resident, was a sophomore starter on Coach Chadwell's last team, and went on to be a first-team All-League performer in both 74 and 75, playing for Coach Laus, who you're going to hear from in a moment. After captaining the 1975 Red Raider squad, he continued the London Otterbein pipeline, playing for Coach Reynolds until his graduation in 1979. I've heard Coach Chadwell say that John was the best pure shooter he ever coached. This didn't surprise me because when I was away at school, my mom would often report that little Phillips boy was out in our backyard again shooting baskets. I'm just glad that we're closer in age because I'm sure I've lost all my allowance to him playing for us. John.
Well, it's rather difficult to follow all these guys. And I guess because I'm like my dad, a man of a few words, I'm just going to read something that I took some time to write out. I want to thank the Chadwell family for inviting me to participate in the dedication ceremony. I'm very proud to be a part of it. Also want to thank the people that took the idea, took action to get the gymnasium named after Coach Chadwell. I'd also like to say that I'm very proud to be from London, Ohio. My first recollection of the coach is around 1963 when I was in first grade. My dad took me to the high school games at a very early age, so I knew who Coach was. He had a program on Saturday mornings during basketball season where he and some of the varsity players put us through some basic drills. I remember I couldn't wait to get to the gym and see this big, enthusiastic man interfacing with each and every young man as well as anybody else around. At the end of the drills, we were allowed to shoot around and report to him that you made 50 baskets. Well, I couldn't wait to make my 50, get my chance to run up to him and tell him. It's my chance to spend 3 to 4 seconds next to the coach, and it was somewhat intimidating. I wouldn't dare approach him until I'd made all 50. I had no idea at the time that in the future I'd be spending quite a bit of time around him. It was also during this time I first saw him put his feet up on the bars at the end of the permanent seats and watch him do what seemed at the time hundreds of push-ups. It's just one of those things that's etched in my mind. He was a very, very strong man. Coach was our gym teacher during elementary school. We'd be marched over to the high school by our teacher, and sometimes we'd dress in the locker room where the varsity athletes dressed, and the training room was right there. Coach Chadwell put up 8 by 10 photos of some of the all-league players and their stats. I spent a lot of time looking at these pictures, and these guys were like God to me. A few of them included Tallis Galvis, the Reynolds brothers, Barth Royer, Howard Porter, and I could go on and probably name every one of them. By putting these photos up, Coach had already got them in my head. I wanted my photo to be up there. One day after gym class in 5th grade, Coach asked me if I'd be interested in going away that summer to basketball camp. Back then, basketball camps were really in their infancy, and I don't think anybody else in London had ever been to a basketball camp, let alone heard of it. So he told me to ask my parents and let him know the next week. My parents okayed it, and I anxiously told him when I saw him next. The first year we went, it was Coach, his son Paul, and myself. We went down south to a college by the name of the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. As most of us know, Coach is one of the most outgoing people the world has ever known. He fit right in with the Southern hospitality. The kids had no idea he was from Ohio, and I'm sure nobody else he came into contact did either, unless it was one of the other coaches. Coach was really in his element, working with the kids during the day with his unique ability to communicate, and spending time with other coaches in the evening. We took a station wagon full of kids the next year. The year after that, we took 2 station wagons full of kids. What I remember about those trips is the coach always made it fun. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most memorable thoughts I have about Coach. He knew how to have fun and be sociable. One year when driving back from camp, he needed a little break from driving while we were going through Asheville, North Carolina. When we got off the freeway, actually, he somehow drove past a little private lake. He quickly turned into the entrance of this lake. The security guard, like Lake Choctaw used to be, asked him if he could help him. Well, Coach exchanged some pleasantries with the guard for a few minutes, as only Coach could do. Then said, well, you know, Mr. So-and-so is a friend of mine and owns a lot out here. He said we'd come out here anytime we wanted to. So I don't remember exactly what the guard said, but shortly after that, we were on our way, and within a few minutes, he found a lot with a boat dock. So he pulled in and said, everybody out. He said, let's take a swim. So everybody stripped down to their shorts, and into the lake we went while Coach took a quick nap. Boy, that water felt good. And I'll never forget those trips. Coach took great care of us and made sure we all had a great time. Through junior high school in my freshman year, it wasn't unusual to get a call from Paul or Steve, no matter what time of the year, asking me if I wanted to come up to the gym with them while Coach did some work. There were certain guys Coach knew were going to play for him, and they got the same calls. Coach liked the guys that were competitive in nature and had the desire to get better. He would help them any way he could. It was also not unusual to get a call for an invite to go watch a college basketball game. The call would go something like, hey, you want to go watch Indiana play Miami of Ohio tonight? Have a ticket for you, pick you up at 5. Or we're going to go watch Marquette play in Cincinnati. Got a ticket for you, make sure your parents know you won't be home until midnight. As a matter of fact, I recall after the one game, Coach Knight stopped at the end of his post-game press conference to acknowledge Coach and talk with him for several minutes. Before he ever coached me on the high school basketball team, I already knew Coach cared about me. When you know the coach really and truly cares about you, you do everything you can to please him. I know Coach cared about every one of his players. Yes, he knew the game and how it was to be played, but it all started with character. From knowing that he cared about you and how he treated you came respect. Some coaches try to demand respect. Coach Chadwell didn't need to. He earned it from each and every team member individually and collectively from the team. As a freshman, I played on the junior varsity. Towards the end of the season, he had me practice with the varsity and let me dress for the last few games of the year in the tournament. He was letting me get a glimpse of how important preparation for the tournament was, as well as what his team would look like the next year. The next year, his last as high school coach, he started a freshman, Cecil Russell, who loved Coach, and I know is looking down from above today with a big smile on his face. I was a sophomore, and then 3 seniors, one of which was his son, Steve. Coach took a late season loss at Grove City in double overtime pretty hard. He hated losing and never lost his competitive spirit. He didn't care what grade you were in, what part of town you lived in, or who your parents were. If you could contribute within the team environment, you got the chance to practice and play. Later in life, I had the pleasure of spending more time with Coach. We had a lot of fun together, every time. To say he never knew a stranger is a gross understatement, and once he met you, he never forgot you. But more importantly, you never forgot him. I saw it time and time again over the years. How many people do you know that greet you first, virtually 100% of the time, before you even get the chance to greet them, with a big smile and a positive, sincere compliment? He was and is a very unique man. Coach was a great communicator and teacher of the game of basketball, who taught me and showed me what it was like to be part of a team, and at the same time teaching me about life. Simply put, he's one of the greatest men and human beings I've ever known in my life. He truly deserves this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, John. To complete our lineup, I'm pleased to announce Coach Ray Laux, the man who succeeded Coach Chadwell as London head basketball coach in 1973. Coach Laux was born and raised in Battle Creek, Michigan, and played his college ball at Miami, Ohio. He was a graduate assistant for 2 years at Clemson, and he also played for a year professionally in Europe. After his 2 years in London, he was the head coach for both the boys and girls teams in Jackson, Mississippi for 6 years, before moving on to a head job in Buckeye, Louisiana, which he held for 8 years. For the last 17 years, he's been the assistant coach at Eastern High School in Dayton, Indiana. Coach Laux.
This is very hard for me because I'm not from London. I came to London. And before I came to London, I have a story about Chad. We have worked camps together many, many times after I had graduated from Miami and went to Clemson. Coach Locke, who was my coach, had camps down in Clemson. Chad would come down. Had camps at Miami, over at the Western College for Women. Chad would come over, run the camps. Greatest tactician in the world. But the greatest thing about Chad was it didn't matter what court you ever put him on. He took the outdoor courts. The outdoor courts are in the blazing sun on blacktop. And the greatest story I have about Chad is he comes in one day, and I wish I brought it with me, but he's in shorts to here, and from here to here, he's taken a shoelace and has cut the mud flaps off a car somewhere. And he has tied mud flaps down around his ankles. And we've asked him, why were the mud flaps there? He says, so that the blacktop and the tar wouldn't splash up and burn his ankles. It was a great pleasure to come to London and replace Ray Chadwell. I was only here to coach for 2 years and went on to Mississippi. During the 2 years here, it was amazing. He'd help out in any way he could. In fact, if my wife will stand up, Judy Laux was an elementary teacher in the elementary school when I came, and I was single, so was she. And the first thing Chad did was introduce us to one another, take us out, and we went dancing. From there, we got married when I left here at London, and we've been married 30 years since. And Chad was our best man at our wedding. It just goes to show all of you how much this man means to this community. Also, with me looking out into the audience, I've gotten old, and I look around and I see teachers who are here today who were with Chad forever and have come back. And if that isn't a tribute to somebody, nothing else is. Mike, Linda, Steve, Paul, Craig, and Ruthie, you are my second family. I don't know how else to put it. After I left, we kept in touch, and then all of a sudden, every summer it was we had to go to a baseball stadium to watch somebody play. Chad would call me in the early summer, and we would fit in a week somewhere in the world to go. And the places we've been are St. Louis, Chicago, Boston, Cincinnati, Toronto, Seattle, San Diego, Phoenix, New Orleans, Minneapolis, Cleveland, and Denver. And if you hear some of those places that maybe sound familiar, some of them more so we can spend time with the family that were in those places also. And then other times, the family would come and be a part of us. We got to meet his sister in Boston, got to be everywhere in the world. I mean, it was an ongoing thing. The man is truly, truly amazing. He is the true meaning of the word friend. I have one other little story to tell before I finish here, and this is about his competitiveness. Chad was not the greatest golfer in the world, but he loved to play. And we're out over in Springfield playing one time in the spring of the year after basketball was over with. And all of a sudden, he is with a group that is one hole behind him. And as we're going, I'm going down this way and Chad's coming this way. And all of a sudden, his legs are raw. He's in shorts, but his legs are all raw, all tore up. And I asked him, I said, why? And they said, well, Chad hit a bad shot and he threw his club. And the club got caught in a tree. So he tried to get the club down. So he took another club and threw it up, and it got caught. And before it was over and done with, there were 11 clubs up the tree, and he couldn't believe them there, so he had to crawl up the tree, get the clubs down, and come back. for everyone to look up to. He has made friends everywhere he has went. Ray Chadwell is London basketball. Thank you very much.
Well, that concludes our list of speakers, but this tribute would not be complete without a word from one of London High School's most famous graduates, Dick LeBeau. I know you're all familiar with Coach LeBeau's accomplishments at London and Ohio State and the NFL, and so rather than taking time to list them, I will simply read the letter that he asked me to share with you today. In a moment. To those assembled, it is a great honor for me personally to have a few of my words read at this occasion. Coach Ray Chadwell and his family came to London, Ohio when I was 16 years old. A group of my father, Brother Bob, Coach Jim Bolas, Superintendent Joe Hartley, and Principal Jake Von Cannell. These men became the dominant male influence in my life. I must say it is my opinion that I'm one of the most fortunate people in the world to have been exposed to men like these with their exceeding strength of character. Add to this my mother's teaching and care, and you will certainly have the basis for everything I might have been able to accomplish in my life's endeavors. Ray Chadwell was a mentor to me and thousands of other young men. Surely he touched the lives of thousands in a positive way. Coach Chadwell is one of the toughest competitors I've ever seen. He only knows one way to do anything, and that is with honesty and effort. He taught me how to compete, to fight, and to never give up. Coach Chadwell never missed a Sunday church service in all the years I was in London. He taught me to do the best I could, but to realize that there is a greater power in the universe in charge of all things. Ray taught me many things with his words, and many more with his actions. With Coach Chadwell, industrious honesty was the only way. Owing to the fact that there were only 10 years difference in our age, I eventually matured and had the privilege of being able to call Ray Chadwell my friend. He was as strong and constant in his friendship as he was in his mentoring. He has always been a man's man and one you can rely on. It is a great honor to have a facility named after you, yet I know no one more deserving than Coach Ray Chadwell to receive such an honor. His tireless years of dedication to the town of London and the development of its youth certainly merits such acknowledgement. I am honored to be included in the program, and I am blessed to have been exposed to Ray Chadwell's tutelage and friendship. God bless you, Ray, and God bless all of you in attendance. Sincerely, Dick LeBeau, Pittsburgh Steelers. A couple of other pieces of business. I'm pleased to announce that we have a proclamation from the Ohio House of Representatives, which was being presented by District 84 Rep. Chris Widener. I won't bother to read that, but it'll be available for all of you to look at. But it's acknowledging today's dedication ceremony and the naming of this gym. It's Ray Chadwell Gymnasium. I just to make this official, I'd like to call on Superintendent Stephen Allen.
Well, like Coach, we came to London, our family did 16 years ago. So unlike many of you, we didn't grow up here. But you know what makes a community like London a great place are great people. And great educators have that opportunity, more than most, to make an important impact on young people's lives. And as I listened to the folks who are speaking today, I heard them say that Ray Chadwell taught them the will to win, work ethic, respect, about family, tradition, spirit, enthusiasm, and caring. What a wonderful world this would be if we all did so much. In that vein, I will read a proclamation capping off this segment of this day. Ray Chadwell Proclamation, May 19, 2007. In 1953, London City Schools hired Ray Chadwell as a physical education teacher and head high school basketball coach. This was the beginning of an era of of basketball coaching unsurpassed in London history. Coach Chadwell led the basketball team for the next 20 years, amassing 222 wins. Included in his accomplishments are 3 Mid-State League championships, 1 Class AA Central District Basketball Championship in 1971, a regional finals berth that same year, and 2 sectional basketball championships. The 1964-65 Mid-A champions earned the best, was it the best? The best single season record in London high school history at 20-2, in case you missed that. Coach Chadwell was also honored as an inductee into the Central District Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame. In addition to coaching basketball from 1953 to 73, Ray Chadwell served as the head baseball coach from 1953 to 1970, and assistant football coach from 1953 to 1969. Along with teaching physical education, Mr. Chadwell also served as a principal in the school district. While Ray Chadwell's coaching success certainly is significant, his greatest contribution was the positive effect he had on the young people he coached and taught. One states that he is one of my heroes. We were in good hands under his influence. Another states that the excitement he brought to London was tremendous. Yet another says this man was at the gym teaching and coaching for hours, not just with winning in mind, but he cared about the process of building people's character through athletics and physical activity. Longtime superintendent of London schools, J.J. Hartley, may have said it best when he said of Ray Chadwell, and I quote, "Your service as a member of the athletic family of LHS was a most successful contribution. I wish to thank you for your loyalty and cooperation. The community has been rewarded in many ways by having you and your family living here." End quote. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, in consideration thereof and for his contributions to the lives of many students and athletes, on April 16, 2007, the Board of Education of the London City Schools proclaimed the gymnasium at London High School the Ray Chadwell Gymnasium. Thank you.
Superintendent Allen, I guess it falls to me to also know this flag that we hope will be displayed here outside the gym, commemorating this as the Ray Chadwell Gymnasium. Thank you. I guess our last piece of business, we're going to ask that family can, Ms. Paul in particular, is going to head this up to say a few words. Thanks, Paul.
I'd just like to say thank you from the Chadwell family, for our father, for all of your contributions, for attending here. Special thanks to Dillingham and Creek for making sure this happened, and also to the Board of Education and Superintendent Allen for your support. Thank you all very much.
Thanks again to all of you for coming. I think you may have seen that we're all going to convene again at the Red Brick for a little informal reception, tell each other more lies about how good we were, things of that nature. So hope to see a lot of you out there.